are going on, UN commanders are keeping close contact with the enemy in the field and preventing him from gaining ground. However, it is apparent that the communists are staging a large-scale buildup of troops, particularly above Kaesong. There is formal acceptance at this time by General Nam Il of the principle that hostilities will continue until an armistice can be fully worked out. These armed Chinese being chased from the conference area are forerunners of more who will later march through Kaesong and cause still another ultimatum. During the week 15 to 21 July, the negotiators agree to list 3 points on the agenda for the ceasefire talks. 1, the physical details of stopping the fighting. 2, the definition of the ceasefire line. 3, safeguards against resumption of the fighting. The Reds also want to list another topic, to wit, the withdrawal of foreign troops from Korea. Admiral Joy refuses to accept this as part of the agenda. This firmness by the UN negotiators causes General Nam Il to request a 4-day recess, presumably for further instruction. The request is granted. The conference table is empty, except perhaps for the ever-present spirit of Jake Mully, past master of the stall and the double talk.
The world spotlight was on the Korean truce talks at this time, and too often it was forgotten that the infantryman was still in his hole, still in the line, doing that same job. That's the man we'd like to talk about right now. Lieutenant Robert Fallon, who led these riflemen in battle in Korea, knows these men. Bob?
This has been the infantry soldiers' war, and never in his country's history has any war required him to be so skillful. He's had to master the use of a dozen different weapons. He's had to learn the stealth of the Indian in night combats and patrols, and the hardiness of the Eskimo in staying alive in sub-zero weather. And again, never has any campaign ever required him to be so tough. These are the things that the American people have asked him to do. We've asked him to fight in a land thousands of miles from his home. We've asked him to risk his life daily. And the only reason that he's really aware of for this is that the American people have asked him to. That there's none of the compulsion of the Civil War when the men were defending their homelands, and none of the national dedication of the big world wars when the entire world was inflamed. No, he's fighting today because we've asked him to fight. But that's good enough for him. We've asked him to endure temperatures 30 degrees colder than those known to the gallant men that followed George Washington into Valley Forge. We've asked him to undergo 3 trying and difficult withdrawals, one of them in the bitter, merciless heat of summer, and the 2 others in the misery and cold of a Manchurian winter. And all of them against odds at times more staggering than those faced by the valiant defenders of Bataan. 3 times we've asked him to turn and stand against these odds. The American infantryman dug his hole and manned his weapons, and he held. And he held at a place where very often the tanks and the ships and the planes were of no use to him, on those frozen hillsides of Korea. He did this job, and he did it well, and at a time when many were saying it could not be done. And who is this American infantryman? He's a man who but a short time ago was sitting in his comfortable living room, even as you. Now he's awaiting with dread the bitter, endless winter night, when to sleep often means not to awaken. He's the next-door neighbor who accepted with such delight the extra piece of roast beef you offered him when he was over to your house last summer for supper. Now he's hacking away at a can of beef stew, which is frozen solid. Or perhaps he's the laundryman who used to deliver your bundle of spotless linen each week. Now he very often doesn't change his shirt for 2 months. This man, whom you know so well, is now a part of an unbeaten body of fighting men, the American infantrymen. He's you. You're a soldier in that distant land now because you've asked him to be there.
There's nothing anyone can add to what Lieutenant Fallon has said. Thank you, Bob. And thanks, too, to Sergeant Jim Heidenreich, who appeared earlier in our program. Next week, we'll have the final program in our Big Picture series. We'll show you what patrol action was like in Korea. You'll see an infantry attack on Hill 1179. You'll see the return of refugees to the city of Seoul. And with us next week will be 2 Signal Corps combat cameramen, 2 of the many cameramen who filmed the Big Picture in Korea. This is Captain Carl Zimmerman, inviting you to be with us then.